Yeah, right on.
Right on. So, cool. I guess this is maybe our very first episode for this kind of coffee talk for data streaming or streaming coffee, whatever it is.
Streaming coffee sounds good. Streaming caffeine.
Streaming caffeine, yeah. But I mean,
caffeinated streaming.
Yeah, sometimes I even drink decaf. Depends on the day or the mood, but really like coffee. So, by the way, that is my talk on the current coffee on Kafka. I'm also using the kind of energy of coffee a lot because there are so many different ways to query data in the Kafka, just like there's so many different ways to having coffee.
Yeah.
Some easy, some tough, some strong, some like user
process the coffee beans. Sounds good. It's like we're processing coffee beans in real time.
Yeah.
Streaming them.
And also we are very serious for this coffee talk. So we are
delighted to be on the first one. We're in Vancouver.
Yeah. And this is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. That's
yeah.
And they also have a lot of nice coffee shops and beans and build up coffees. How about you?
Cool. So I grew up in Vancouver.
Yep.
But this is first time back for the summer in a long time. I grew up in North Vancouver, which is from where we're sitting today, back towards the bottom of Mount Seymour over there. But so I'm pretty happy to be here. It's been a really nice summer. Really nice. It's like a little bit of rain, not too hot. There's been no smoke from wildfires, so it's been pretty nice to be up here. Definitely a change from the Santa Cruz summers.
Cool. Yeah, we can talk about that. So first, let's have some coffee at the beginning. So I have latte, drip, maybe flat white.
Fancy.
Yeah, choose which one you want.
Sure, I'll go for the flat white.
Okay, cool.
I shouldn't drink too much coffee. There we go. Okay. Flat white. So the first time I ever had a flat white was in Australia.
Oh yeah, it's
I think that's kind of where it came
from. It's a big thing in Australia, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's basically just hot milk in a coffee.
Yeah. I guess in many different flavor is really the different ratio for the water for the bean.
Yummy, actually.
Yeah, Smoke Tree is one of my favorite coffee shop in town.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. Bread and coffee. Is the bread good?
And later we will make some coffee in the talk.
Yeah, later we're going to make our own coffee, just so everyone can see what we're going to do here. So we're going to make our own drip, and Jove has brought some beans for us. Is this what it is, blue bottle? So we're going to make our own coffee.
Yeah.
Right on. We're going to be very well caffeinated.
Yeah, the idea that is we're so far with the beautiful Vancouver as the background, with good friend, and we can chat almost everything.
Yeah, cool.
Again, we cannot use this office forever. Thank you for our friends from eBuilding. Again, I guess the first talk is really about like data streaming, like start your own company, challenges, how you work with your like users or partners. Or maybe AI. I mean, I don't really have any scheduled agenda. It's totally unscripted.
Well, I think it might be kind of fun to do. I would love to hear the founding story of Timeplus, and then maybe I can tell you the founding story of Bytewax.
Sure. And maybe you can start from kind of more formal intro.
Sure, yeah. or even less formal intro for the people in your audience where you post it who don't know me. So, yeah, my background is... Actually, you don't know any of this either. So I was born in Canada, in Vancouver. I actually went to UBC, where we're sitting today is just down the street, closer to where Jove lives, I think. And I studied civil engineering there. I have a civil engineering ring. This is you get this when you graduate from civil engineering program. It's supposed to be a symbol. It's supposed to symbolize, you'll see people, you'll notice it now.
Okay, I thought that was from your lover.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to, it's symbolic, and the purpose of it is to remind you of the implications of the things you're building. So it's kind of relevant across all practices, but I practice civil engineering, and it was actually made from, the original rings were made from from the iron from a bridge that fell down because it was pushed ahead of schedule, and it was underbuilt. Okay. And so it collapsed and a bunch of people died. So it's supposed to be like, the idea of like tying something around your finger to remember so that you don't forget. So it's supposed to be the same kind of thing. Anyway, so I finished my civil engineering program. I worked on a bunch of hydropower projects and mining projects. So I was kind of going all over the place in Canada, up north, and venturing through the woods and all these crazy places. And I at one point I was working on a mine, and I really got tired of the experience. I didn't really believe in what I was working on, so I left the profession and I went to business school, and that was in France. So I went to a business school called HEC Paris.
It's so famous.
Yeah, just outside of Paris, and I did a master's in management, so a business degree similar to like an MBA. And part of it I did actually in Texas, at University of McCombs. And when I was there was a new role and title that was created called a data scientist that DJ Patil created when he became slightly before, but he became the chief data science officer of the United States. So it became this role, and if you liked math and statistics and science and computers, it was like a really interesting thing to go be, because you could just go take the scientific method and apply it to analyzing businesses. So in business school, I was like, cool, perfect, that's what I'll do. So I left business school and I went to the Bay Area and I started working in a speech technology company called Verbio. That was a little Spanish company that was trying to expand to the US. They were moving all of their speech recognition models from using hidden Markov models approach to neural networks with this open source framework called Caldi. And that was when I kind of saw the power of deep learning, and I was like, this is so cool, I want to be able to craft a career around that. So I then pursued jobs where I could move from being more of a classical data scientist to being more in the machine learning and machine learning infrastructure. Eventually, this is the longest story to get where I'm going on how I started Bytewax. I worked at GitHub on machine learning infrastructure, and real-time machine learning was always a friction point or like an impossibility. Yeah. So after training models, putting them into production to serve traffic in real time was really hard, because all the inputs are very varied. They're coming from different sources. They might be in real time or in batch, and like unifying all of that processing to then make the inference, like having the model actually do the inference, like serving it in an application is super easy, but getting all the data that the model needs, like all of these other features, is really hard. So tried to create a business to tackle that. That led to Bytewax, which is a Python stream processor, and the idea is to lower the barrier for companies to build real-time pipelines that would facilitate real-time machine learning. That was the whole impetus behind starting Bytewax.
And how many years we're talking about, from the hack MBA to founding of the company?
Well, so I finished my MBA almost 10 years ago, or not my MBA, my master's in management almost 10 years ago. So it's been like a 10-year journey through this speech technology company. Then I worked at Heroku, and then at GitHub. And then after the acquisition from Microsoft of GitHub, I left to start Bytewax. So.
And your co-founder also from the GitHub team, the same team?
Dan, who's the VP of engineering and was like the first founding engineer, was, he's also from GitHub. We started working, so long story again.
Okay.
So after Microsoft acquired GitHub, there was a big push for us to move our cloud infrastructure to Azure, because we were using AWS.
Yeah.
And so
AWS.
Yeah. So
no discussion.
Yeah. And the VP of data at the time signed up the data team to kind of pioneer this.
Okay.
So all these networking hurdles we had to work through, trying to make things talk to each other. And we had stuff in like first-party data center, and we had stuff in AWS, and we were trying to figure out how we could create this architecture so everything can talk to each other. And so Dan and I bonded over all of this like shitty time trying to move our services over to run in Microsoft Azure, but still be able to read data from AWS, read data from first-party data centers, and it all be safe. So we were like, there was a lot of ups and downs through that time. So that's And Dan used to work on a bunch of the data infrastructure at GitHub. So I did machine learning infrastructure and machine learning stuff at GitHub. He did data infrastructure stuff. So they were actually managing our Flink installation that we had, and we used Flink essentially as an ingestion mechanism.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I guess almost everyone or every big company using Flink in some way, and all I say, oh, maybe I don't have to use it so heavily, or maybe I can have an easy way. So I guess that's kind of explain why.
That's how I'm here today.
Yeah,
now it's your turn. You're here because of Flink? No.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, if you are serious about data streaming, you cannot avoid the topic about Flink.
Yeah.
It's just there. It's super nice, super sophisticated. And for example, my last, I spent 7 years in Splunk. Actually, many of our co-founders and founding engineer also coming from Splunk. It's, I guess, in IT domain, people should somehow use Splunk or heard of Splunk. It's very nice.
For better or for worse. They're probably using Splunk.
Yeah. So the short story that is, I'm doing data for a long time, and by my last 2 years in Splunk, we are in this team called Data Streaming Processor. Essentially, it tried to redesign Splunk, or at least have an extra component of Splunk so that it can understand what's going on right now without running data to the index and query over and over again. It's very expensive, right? Some of the big clients of Splunk, they have maybe hundreds or thousands of nodes, multiple petabyte data. If you want to understanding whether you are being attacked or whether there's some IT outage, if you want to get that alert within 1 minute or even less, you might have to schedule a lot of queries. It's very expensive. So the idea that is, hey, maybe we should leverage some idea of data streaming, leveraging Splunk like stuff like Kafka, Pulsar, Kinesis, Flink, Istio, Kubernetes, all those stuff to see whether we can have a new solution and somehow give the customer lower kind of low latency and without sacrificing the performance. That's the idea. And it was a big team, and we have some fun. And we have stuff like Scrum because it's such a big team, and we have a delegate. I guess I was like 12 or 20 folks focusing on the Kubernetes alone because it's such a big monster, so many features.
12 people working on Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And many folks work on the Flink side, some folks work on the Pulsar side. We changed it from Kinesis to Kafka and eventually to Pulsar.
Yeah.
There's a lot of story behind that, but anyway, it is a working solution, but we feel like, can we build this in a more kind of integrated solution, in a kind of deliver feature faster, and maybe solve the problem in a different way. So that's kind of the reason why step by step, some of folks in this project, they either try something new or start own company or join other companies. And for us, we love Flink to some degree. Yeah. But we feel like we don't really think Flink is the only solution, right? I mean, to be honest, for anyone who watch this podcast or whatever channel, we respect the Flink community. But again, sometimes it can be kind of overkill if you just want to move data from A to B or do some simple transformation, or even
if you just have a small number of workloads.
Or you don't want to spend your best engineer on that topic. Yeah. So we take a different approach. So that's the reason why we start a company called Timeplus, and it's essentially a database. So we are using SQL as the primary interface, not Python. We do have some interface for Python. So again, if you're a Python developer, main kind of like data analyst, data scientist role, maybe you can using Bytewax. And if you more prefer using SQL or more like data engineer or Python engineer, you can check the Timeplus and some other solutions. There's a lot of options over there. And just like coffee, as I mentioned, that is, it's perfectly okay. You drink different coffees different times, and sometimes you like a fancy coffee. Sometimes you need a very strong espresso. Yeah.
Sometimes if you have you have the whole day to spend on making the coffee. Yeah. That's kind of like akin to using Flink sometimes. Yeah. You might get the best coffee at the end of it, but you have spent the whole day.
And some folks are really sometimes enjoy making coffee. Some people just spend $1 for the McDonald's and get the coffee good stuff. Again, there's many different ways, and all I really hope that is we can build this coffee community, have more people enjoy data streaming. It's not really so complicated.
Totally.
Also can be so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people assume, you need a huge amount of expertise and upskill to take on the like real-time realm, because historically you have, right? And so I think everyone in the industry who's starting something new is trying to tackle it from that lens. It sounds like that's what you all are doing too. Is like how can you like empower those teams to go and use the data they already have available in a real-time manner so they can add more value.
Yeah.
That's like the end goal, right? We're all trying to do.
Yeah, one topic of that is.
But wait, before we go on,
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
hear more about
Of course.
how much can you talk about the Splunk? I'm interested about the data stream processing in Splunk part.
Yeah.
So did it happen before? So you have like, for those of us who haven't really used Splunk a lot, so you have like the agents, and then you have the kind of collector stage, and then you have an indexer. Is that how it works?
Yeah, basically how Splunk works, that is actually that I guess this year they're celebrating that 20 years of anniversary.
Yeah.
They have a conference called Conf because the config file is called .conf file, so the conference is called .conf. Anyway, it's very interesting. So there's a lot of hack and kind of joy in this community culture. So anyway, I really like that culture. So back to how Splunk work in general, that is they have an agent, they call it forwarder. So it's a special binary. And by the way, that is most of the backend code is implemented using C++, and it's a huge repo, but you can compile it to a single binary, and you can assign different role and kind of configuration for that stuff. So essentially, it's the same piece of software, but depends on your topology. You can, hey, this is my forwarder, this is my indexer, this is my search head.
Okay, interesting.
So you have your data coming from a forwarder collect local logs, and the forwarder send the data forward to the cluster or single node they call indexer. Then you have a bunch of search pair. They can do distributed search if there are a lot of data sets, and they have the UI side. They have some. If you have class, you might have a class manager. But all those stuff, essentially, they are sharing the same binary, just using different role configuration. And
the idea was to have the streaming happen, or this like stream processing layer happen before the indexer.
Yeah,
was that the idea?
Yeah.
So the centrally collected logs would hit this DSP layer, and then they would go to the indexer.
Yeah, and also back 20 years ago or 15 years ago, there's a bunch of file in different file systems. There's many different software. Hey, you want to collect the log from VMware, you want to collect from other antivirus software. But like now, I guess 5 or 10 years ago, we are slowly moving to this distributed environment, right? And there's a bunch of Kubernetes, there's a lot of server-side log, there's a lot of SaaS API. So I would say there's not as many local files as 20 years ago as Splunk. So there's a lot of expectation, hey, my log is already somewhere like in S3 or in the Kafka topic, not in a file system. How can I get those data in and get those alerts, no matter whether you want to query directly or you want to put in the index and query again? So as a user, no matter on the IT monitoring or security use cases, they do enjoy this kind of, we call it single glass of pane. That is, you can put all the data into Splunk and build a very nice dashboard. But in the same time, they are expecting lower latency, not like 1 hour, not 10 minutes. They want like 1 minute. And that is very hard to do if you put everything into the index, having all those like revert index, those tokenization, and then you run a query every 20 seconds to query them again, then you end up with scanning data all the time and don't really get a good results.
So where does Cribl, have you heard of the company? There's got to be Splunk, ex-Splunk people.
Cribl is one of the company ex-Splunker created and doing quite interesting stuff. So from very beginning, it is to give value proposition to the Splunk user that is, hey, you don't have to send everything to Splunk.
Yeah.
Especially if you are talking about, hey, this is HTTP 200. Also, those are healthy stuff. You don't really want those low value stuff into Splunk and take over your entire kind of a quota, because in many ways, Splunk charged by your index volume.
Yeah.
So that's how they start. But
Saving
eventually they also add other data sources or data sinks. They do some search today. So yeah.
And do they offer a stream processing capability?
Yeah, I think there's a Cribl streaming product. I don't use this heavily enough, but my impression is still based on the IT logs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, like today, at least for Timeplus, our customer base, some of them really care about, for example, Bitcoin, Web3 data, or some other fintech. They are not necessary to be on logs. Right? They just want to understand, hey, what's the trend? For example, give you a very simple example, that is, say a bunch of coin, they might be being mined or is finalized. Then you have currency in different unit. Right? You want to say, hey, my current portfolio, what is the market value in USD or in Euro?
Okay.
And you need to do a bunch of dynamic join. And together with some state management. That's something not typical like log. Or even database.
I guess you don't really need state management for parsing logs necessarily. But if you want to do something more advanced, you would need that.
Yes.
Cool. So coming from the Splunk background, you mentioned IoT and security. Are those the biggest segments that Splunk focused on?
Yeah, Splunk, they're doing great on the sales. The foundation was so nice, like 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, and they add a lot of other stuff such as the security manager, the enterprise security. That's also somehow inspired how we ship and build a feature in Timeplus.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned, that is many of us, no matter co-founders or engineers coming from Splunk, we really get inspired by the way Splunk itself is such a great tool. They have a very nice database engine, kernel, query language, all the clustering, all those API. But what is amazing that is they have this SKU, say this is enterprise security, this is IT monitoring, this is on-call management. They even have some AI stuff today. The day you purchase it, you install it, you hook up all the API or the file, and boom, you get everything on your dashboard. So you don't really have to write those SP or the query language. You don't have to build your dashboard alert. Everything is predefined. It's already a product.
Like out of the box.
So that's also somehow we are trying to do that is we work very hard to build a very nice so-called stream database, but in the same time, we're really focusing on certain industrial and have
verticals
solutions for them.
Solutions for verticals. So that kind of, my prodding question was like, if you saw a lot of IoT and a lot of cybersecurity, is that a focus for Timeplus? Or, you mentioned, I think, crypto and something else, but what is the main, who do you see as the, who are the people that are self-selecting as, hey, Timeplus is a great solution for us?
Again, we have to be cautious regarding what we want to be and what we can do right now with the limited resource and time and people, right? So, in general, we should be a general purpose solutions for different stuff, including Splunk. Some people using Splunk in a very tricky way, never expected, but still work very well. But with the limited time resource, we really want to focus on a few areas. Right now, we're really focusing on the fintech.
Okay, cool.
As well as general data engineering side. The IoT, the security is something we can do, but it's somehow covered by our general platform use cases. So many of our POCs and the clients will talk actively. They really enjoy this low latency of Timeplus. For example, we are the few company in the world that is we can do single-digit millisecond such kind of latency. And also we can deploy on-prem, not just cloud. This is also a big topic.
Yeah.
I somehow trained that is we should be cloud only.
Yeah.
But because we are focusing on this streaming real-time stuff, I talk to many customers. They have strong concern. Hey, if I send data to your cloud, then call again, it's already more than 1 second.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So the user purpose of a low latency, and
Yeah.
also some fintech company, they are very sensitive
To data.
regarding the data. They don't want to leave their data center. So and also we don't want to be vendor locked
Uh-huh.
on AWS on in GCP. So our stuff is more like cloud first.
Yeah.
It may sound tricky, but it's true that is we really want more customers using our cloud.
Yeah.
But if you really have a strong reason to deploy on-prem, yeah, that's the piece of software you can try.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, you'll have all the solutions.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Yeah. We actually decided to do an open source project for many reasons, but one of the reasons was that data privacy and security purposes. It's a little easier for it to be adopted and used internally and deployed wherever. Like that was kind of our. We wanted to create a stream processor that was like very lightweight and easy to use, so you could really go far and deploy it anywhere if you wanted. And now we have people who have told us recently that they're using it on like IoT devices on ships.
Nice.
So it's like when there's no network, it's working in that fashion. When there is network, then it's a cloud.
Cool.
It's deployed in a Kubernetes cluster in their network,
Cool.
it was really cool for them to tell us. We had this guy we're like, yeah, what are you using? Because one of the things about being an open source company is you don't actually know who's using your software.
They can use it.
There's no telemetry in the library. There's telemetry in some of the other tooling, but so we're asking him like, oh, how are you using Bytewax today? Why did you select Bytewax? What are you doing with it? And he lifted up this like super industrial looking like little IoT device, and he's like, oh yeah, it's running on this in ships. And we're like, wow, that's so cool.
It's like edge computing.
Yeah, we're like, we didn't really build it for that. And the other day, someone opened up an issue, and they're like, "Can we get an ARM V8 build?" And we're like, "What are you running this thing on?"
Online microwave.
Yeah, exactly. So we're like, "Okay, whatever." But it's kind of cool. I guess that was one of the differentiating pieces for us, which we like. We didn't really. It wasn't the reason we built Bytewax, because we kind of thought, what are you really doing on the edge where you need this like kind of more significant stateful stream processor? Because like, do you have many inputs? But I guess in this specific case, there's a lot of telemetry data coming in, and maybe the same could be for automotive. And we have seen some like heavy industry where actually on these things, like in the ships, in the cars, there's actually like what would be the equivalent of a serious computer 10 years ago. Yeah. And it's collecting the whole car, the whole vehicle is like instrumented.
Nice.
And it's collecting all kinds of crazy data, and then they're doing some joins, some automated decision making, some like analysis, the KPI, stuff like that, right on the device.
And I guess this reminds me when I interviewed some of user, customer, or kind of a champion. Some people was like, I hate Flink.
Yeah.
They mean it. I mean, again, Flink is super nice, super sophisticated, but it is still very hard to imagine for such a small device you run a Flink cluster.
Yeah, that's what he told us. He said I couldn't do it with Flink because it just didn't have the capabilities. So that was kind of cool.
But do you think that's kind of the PLG, or do you think like product-led growth is something possible for like as technical product as extreme data streaming as us?
So I've actually had this conversation a few times now, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term. It's called product-led sales.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like a hybrid between enterprise sales and product-led growth. I actually stole this, or I'm regurgitating this from a podcast, Lenny's podcast. But there was this, one of the episodes that were detailing this idea of product-led sales, and I think it fits for us, Bytewax, and the whole open source to the platform and what we're trying to like deliver here. But the idea is product-led growth is like the same user is also the buyer. That's when product-led growth works really good, because they can sign up, They can use it for freemium, and they can put their credit card in, and you can scale as the usage grows or whatever, you can scale, and everybody's happy. But for product-led sales, you can have this freemium type product-led growth kind of experience where you have the user using it, the user scaling it, but at some point you need that sales handoff because the actual buyer is someone else. So if you think of traditional enterprise sales as like, hey, we find the buyer persona and we're going to sell to the buyer persona, and the engineers are going to use it. And you think of product-led growth as, hey, we're going to find the user persona, we're going to sell to them. Something like a merge between those two. And so for Bytewax, it feels like a good fit because what our paid product is like a bunch of operational and surface area, like compliance surface area on top of the Bytewax project that makes it easier to manage. And so the buyer persona, which is like a director or manager or CTO, they are looking for or to spend money to take away the headache of that operational burden, that compliance burden, so their engineers can work on the stuff that matters. So it fits nicely for us, but this is still early days, so we'll see how it goes. But that's the idea we're playing around with.
Okay. Yeah.
But I hadn't heard of this product. I was like, I can't even remember where I was driving somewhere. I think I was driving back from Southern California, and I was driving up, and that's when I listen to podcasts because I don't have my kid in the car or my wife or anything, and I'm like, I have 5 hours to burn from LA to Santa Cruz, so I was listening to this podcast, and it really clicked for me because we're focused right now on like, what does the whole go-to-market motion look like?
Okay, yeah.
But it's really interesting. It's been super fun working on the really technical aspects of Bytewax. How do you rescale? Like how do you manage state? All these sort of things. Recovery, cloud backup, and now to like shift gears and think a little bit more about like the business and how we create more value on top of those open source projects has been really, really fun, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that topic is. I mean, I guess many of us in this kind of startup kind of mode is really passionate regarding how impactful the technology can shape or change our life, and we do want to make something innovative, creative, solving some problem, and this should be a sustainable way. And I guess last week it was the discussion regarding the open source license change.
Yeah, I think it's going to keep happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually had an offsite meeting last week.
Yeah.
Together with many of our founding team and co-founders in Bay Area. So by the way, I work from Vancouver. Our CTO work from Vancouver.
Oh, cool.
There are 2 more engineers in Vancouver. We have our UI designer in Toronto, and a few other folks in Bay Area, or like our CEO in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of Zoom meetings for sure, but it's still very amazing that is we book a huge house at Airbnb, and we discuss a lot as late as like 1 a.m.
Yeah, that's fun.
Something you have to decide.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
That's fun though. You can only do that at this stage.
Yeah,
you know, like that won't happen. And once the company's like 50 or 100 people.
Yeah, and in the middle of that offsite, we saw the news, and there are also discussion regarding the open source. Yeah, by the way, I will share more details next month when we do the announcement. But we already planned the open source for a while in Timeplus, and it's going to be happen soon.
With the whole, you can share more details later. But the whole platform is going to be open source?
Our core engine will be open source.
Core engine, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so in on one hand, we do want to get a lot of feedback from the community.
Yeah.
So today we do many kind of you can call it sales led, but we don't really have full-time sales today. It's mainly like co-founder reach out to different folks to say, hey, maybe you can try Timeplus. What's your problem? We can help a little bit. But again, with the next step, we really wanted to reach out to more kind of potential users. And open source is one of the best ways. As you mentioned, that is some folks don't really want to use the cloud version, or they might have some either data they want to move to the cloud, or they have even some policy, whatever, in their vendor list how to be open sourced, so that they can deploy on-prem, they can have a sense of kind of a security to some degree. That is, even the company do very well, they have the capability to apply, fix, or maintain by themselves.
Yeah.
So there's many ways people put open source as one of the checklists. Yeah, in the meanwhile, we do want to making sure we as a company can be can grow in a sustainable way. That is, with enough kind of budget and kind of other partnership, we can push the project in the next step without worrying too much about that. Is everyone can host our service. We're not talking about AWS, but it will be a heavy problem to solve. But
Yeah, cool.
don't worry too much about that.
Well, that'll be awesome. Yeah, there's been a lot around open source licensing. In like last week was HashiCorp, right? They switched to BSL. And there's this, I feel like there's like this core, like hardcore open source idea, or these ideals around free and open source software, free as in beer. And like that, like ideologies that come from like the early days of open source. But it's hard because it's still, I think that if we stagnate the evolution of open source licensure, we stagnate the industry, because it has to evolve with the way that people interact, purchase, and ultimately commercially apply software. And so I think actually the BSL, for those who don't know, probably should look it up and not listen to me, but business source license.
Check the link below.
Yeah, check the link. The business source license, which is like, it can take many different terms or forms, and some people create their own versions of this, but what it essentially means is like, you can use the software for free, but if you use it in some commercial way that they deem they don't want you to use it in that commercial way, you have to pay. So the idea behind the business source license was initially to stop the clouds from eating others' lunch, so like Elastic or Mongo or CouchDB or whatever. There was all these different iterations of this, where they wanted to stop AWS, who is really good at operationalizing software. They wanted to stop them from giving an offering that was equal or better with lower barrier of entry than their own.
Yeah, sometimes I heard this multiple times from different sources. They are basically saying the same thing, that is, some very successful tech company, their biggest enemy is themselves, the open source version.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, they have the hard time to convince those users to use either their enterprise version or cloud version. They don't really have a strong kind of a solution to persuade them to purchase.
Yeah.
And another way is like the company don't have enough resource to push to the next step, which they should do. Yeah.
And I think we have a limited number of business models that are proven, and how proven they are is still like debatable. Because there's like host the thing, or there's the open core, which was HashiCorp, which everyone touted as a success, but now they just switched their licensing, so who really knows? Like Red Hat championed the whole support model, and then there's the hosted one where you build something that's usable, but you make it so easy to use your hosted version and add maybe product surface area. But yeah, I don't know. It's really, we have a conversation often with Bytewax, because and you're going open source, and now you'll have this same conversation repeatedly, as like, you want people to achieve the success with the open source quickly and efficiently, and in a way such that they're so happy with the product that they want to evangelize it. And they're like, they've solved their job to be done, and they're like, hey, everyone, you can solve this job to be done with this amazing open source software. But at the same time, you need these hooks. You need these hooks in the open source where you're like, this is great. I've now turned from persona A, who was like, I'm solving my one job to be done, to persona B, which is whatever you might decide. And now I want to pay for the software because it has these other features, or it's hosted and I don't want the burden of hosting. And I think it's really, I don't know, I think it's very difficult to really draw the line correctly, especially the first time, where you have this, what you put in the open source and what you don't. Because on one hand, the open source community could hate you, and on the other hand, you might not be able to sell anything, and your business is dependent on you selling some software at some point to be commercially viable. And so if you don't make money, the open source doesn't matter, because it's going to eventually, unless someone else maintains it, it's not going to be kept up to date. So Yeah, it's super complicated problem.
Yeah, and
It shouldn't be, but it is.
yeah, we are going to have such a discussion. I don't know whether we'll discuss it every month, but it'll be fun. One more problem to solve. Thank you. And yeah, you're right that sometimes your user of your open source may not be your ideal customer.
Yeah.
And then not buyer sometimes. So we also want to make the move that is we don't really want to just build everything with our assumptions. The user feedback is important, but depends on different stage. Some companies don't really badly need the user feedback. They want to have the cash flow and different ways to move the business to the next level, and they might have different problems to solve.
You know, as like engineers building products for ourselves, you want to make it so delightful.
Yep.
You know, you want the experience to be so good, but if it's so good, then no one's gonna pay you.
Yes.
Unless you like maybe put a Patreon, I guess, up, and people will sponsor your project. But I don't think that's a sustainable business model.
Yeah, and literally that I saw some kind of, hey, I don't ask anything. If you think I'm cool, buy me a coffee.
Yeah, that's great and all. You know, stars don't, put meals on the table. GitHub stars don't put meals on the table. But they are helpful.
Yeah. So talking coffee, I guess we are. I guess in the middle of this podcast, we will spend maybe 1 or 2 minutes make our own coffee as kind of break, and we can also talk about other topics.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. So let me see.
Where do we heat the water up?
The water should be still all right. Is that too cold?
It's probably pretty cold.
It's yeah. And
is it still hot?
It should be all right. And can we? Do you mind holding this?
Yeah, I can.
So it'll be fun. It's still recording, so I will add this later. So let's make some coffee as in this coffee talk, and we will try to see whether we can do something similar or even more crazy in the next month, the current talk.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'll be at Current too, so I think we have a startup booth. Do you guys have a startup?
Yes.
Cool. We'll be in the same row, so we get to hang out.
Yeah, and I joined the Data Console back in Austin the other day, and one of the booths. Yeah. I forgot the name. Sorry about that, but they bring a very nice.
That's the one
coffee machine.
I was talking about. Decent. Decent.
From Seattle, I mean, guess maybe they have multiple.
Or the machine is called a decent espresso machine.
Yeah, can you move the camera closer and give a special shot for this one?
I think we need hotter water, man.
Yeah. Okay.
We're doing cold brew.
Yeah. Let me ask the owner to see whether we can get more waters.
We are doing the best we can here. We're gonna make some coffee.
And I'm not really using the bean from Blue Bottle.
Okay.
I will say I liked Blue Bottle for a while, but not too much right now. It's acquired by, and I have a local. This is not sponsored by this company, but the Tour is one of my favorite coffee bean in Toronto, I guess. This one have the lemon tea, green apple kind of flavor.
Yeah. Beans. Where are the beans from? Rwanda. There we go.
So
cool.
Yeah, let's have some fun for the coffee. And
we'll have to do this one more time too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a conference that we're a part of called Scale by the Bay.
Okay.
It's in Oakland in November, and you'll have to come down for that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the. That's why I think my previous team, some of my members were. I have to check out. I have to join that conference. It's so nice, and it's not really for particular vendor. It's I guess people talking about best practice.
Yeah, the focus is on data and AI, so there will be, I think, some pretty interesting conversations.
Yeah, and also bring some elements of Canada. Right, so this is the maple syrup.
Have you ever been on a maple syrup a forest where they tap the trees and get maple syrup from? Have you ever been there?
No, not yet.
So the next time you're in Quebec,
okay,
you should go check it out. They're called sugar shacks.
Okay.
So so they tap the trees, and in between the winter and the spring, or in the spring, late winter, early spring, when the temperature goes above freezing and below freezing, the trees start to like generate the sap, and the sap comes out. So you put these like a spike in the tree, and they drain it all out, and then they boil it down, and that's how they make.
Okay. Do you mind using
It's another stream processing vet, because they're processing a stream of sap. Which one?
Oh, we can use a new one. Oh, it's up to you.
Let's get the pour going on here. This one?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, looks good to me.
Yeah. It's not that fancy, but it's let me do the work.
Cheers.
Cheers. Not bad.
Yeah.
I personally like coffee bean, which is a little bit sour and fresh.
Is that what kind of coffee beans give you more that sourness? Like an Arabica or like a Robusta or?
I don't know. That's
not a
just
coffee
so many different beans, and we can invite other folks who are watching this or listen to this podcast if you really know something about the bean and the data.
Yeah. So Dan on the Bytewax team, he's a coffee aficionado for sure.
Wow.
And the company you were mentioning about from Data Council, I think it's called Performance Dynamics.
I think so. Yes. Sounds right.
I think that's it. So they have this decent espresso machine. It's fully programmatic, so you can.
They have a curve.
You can program the curve to match different espresso machines.
Yeah.
And Dan has that one. So
Okay.
He's into it. He knows, and he has a special like artisan grinder and everything. So he really knows his coffee stuff much more than I do.
I mean, you don't have to be that kind of expert, and as long as you appreciate
enjoy it.
Yeah.
We have, if you're ever in Santa Cruz, or next time you're in the Bay, you should come to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And we can make some more coffee. There's two good roasteries down there. There's Verve, which is kind of not as good as Cat and Cloud in my opinion, and then Cat and Cloud. Back in the day, Cat and Cloud had their like roaster right in the coffee shop, and it was at the end of our street that we lived on at the time. It's really, really good coffee. Yeah. We like it at least. And you can order it up here too if you wanted to.
Yeah, nice. And the other thing I really admire, like Santa Cruz, is the mountain bike. Okay, that's also somewhat brilliant up here.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it shows on the thing, but I heard my thumb downhill mountain biking in Whistler. Well, I was so I came up to, my family all lives here, but we planned this trip because before the pandemic, before I had a daughter, and before I had started a startup, I signed up for this bike race, and it's 7 days, and 1 day is kind of short, but so it's like a 6-day bike race in different areas, but like mountain biking on Vancouver Island. And you go like 40-ish kilometers per day, and like you climb up 3,000 or 1,000 to 1,500 meters per day.
Okay.
And so that was the real reason we came up here.
Is that booked a few years ago or postponed?
So I booked it in 2019 and it was postponed.
Okay. Okay.
And now I have a daughter and a startup. So at the time I had so much time to train for this thing, and now fast forward 3 years later, and I had no time to train. So when I got there, I was like woefully underprepared as far as fitness. So it went well. I had a lot of fun, but I wasn't breaking any records myself, that's for sure. But yeah, Santa Cruz is great mountain biking. So does Vancouver. All the mountains behind us here, there's mountain bike trails all up and down those mountains. In fact, over behind us, Mount Seymour there, where I grew up at the bottom of, is one of the like birthplaces of freeride mountain biking.
Okay.
There was these like in the 1990s late 1980s, 1990s. These guys would build these ladder bridges, they're called, and so they're like up in the air, like 10, 15, 20 feet up in the trees. They're like skinnies or ladder bridges, what they call them. So they could be like this wide, or like 2 feet wide, and you ride along them, and at the end they drop off.
Okay.
And this was where all these crazy guys.
I'm wondering whether any VC will Zander, you are not supposed to do this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Before, like,
Someone once sent me
seriously,
on the team once sent me this chart that was like the most dangerous things you can do, and it was like skydiving or like I don't know
Surfing?
whatever that flying
Also
thing
can-
is, and then downhill mountain biking.
Okay, yeah.
Because when you fall, you're gonna injure yourself. Yeah, I try to scale it back from what I used to do. Surfing is much less dangerous.
But I think those are like 100 meter or whatever.
Yeah.
Which wave can be.
I mean, if you're doing that, yeah, you're not starting a startup. If you're doing that, like going to down in California with Mavericks, that's the big wave people surf.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, in Santa Cruz, there's more chill.
Okay,
waves.
yeah. So, what do you think of the overall life experience being a co-founder for a super technical product?
I mean, it's a roller coaster. It is the only job where you can learn as much as possible. Like,
Yep.
you know, it's like really, as you've probably experienced, it's like really drinking from the fire hose. But yeah, it's challenging. It comes with its challenges and its ups and downs. I think it's equal parts like tough and exhilarating at the same time. That's my experience. What about yours?
Yeah, same thing that is. I guess it will, to some degree, we can always say, yeah, if things don't work out, we don't talk about that, but there seems to be a backup plan, but the truth that is very difficult,
Yeah.
even impossible to go back.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's true.
you in this situation that is, you make a lot of tough calls, you're exposed to many different folks. I'm not saying you control your destiny, but you work very hard, also with your team. It's very hard to go back to the position that you solve only a small piece of the puzzle.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've always been a little bit of a generalist myself, so it kind of plays well for me
Yeah.
because you get to, you know, one day you're fundraising, or not, 1 week or whatever months you're fundraising, but so one day you're like focused really hard on fundraising and how you explain the business to people who maybe don't know the technology, and then the next day you're like troubleshooting something in the code.
Yeah.
So it's like, like
Yeah,
you said.
I actually have a kind of a vivid example that is, on the same day, it was like at the 7 a.m. I had a very tough call with a user. That person is very angry about certain stuff.
Yeah.
Things are not really work as he expected. So it was, even before that, I was not sure whether he will join the meeting because it was a different time zone. So I didn't sleep well in that midnight. I wake up maybe 2 a.m., 4 a.m., making sure he don't decline the meeting. And at 7 a.m., that person joined the meeting and say, "Oh, this is not supposed to be work. You have to fix it." So it was a bad call. Kind of not really bad call. It's a lot of data points, and
Hard call.
the hard call. And I really appreciate those data points.
Yeah.
But it's more really good warning regarding certain stuff.
Yeah.
Then I have to change my mode because at 9 a.m. I had a kind of a interview with someone else also in Europe, and I talk about my experience in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's just to be super positive stuff.
Yes.
And so I have to, and right after that call, I have a meeting with my co-founders about that. Go back to the previous 7 a.m. stuff. Let's go back to see what we should be improving, what action we should be take. So it's more like in the war room again. Then in the late afternoon, like 4 or 5 p.m., I was super busy. Someone pinged me that, hey, are you going to join this webinar or not? Because I signed up for the other webinar. It's called the Distributed Computing Meetup. So I signed up, but I'm not sure whether I should join. But now that someone asked me, I should join.
Yeah.
I join and listen to some folks. I get some relax, and suddenly someone mentioned, "Hey, Timeplus is so great, and it is next gen stuff. You really should try this." So it's a total surprise.
Yeah.
So you can see on that day from super upset to be more positive, then go back. Then it's just
It's
so
a roller
crazy.
coaster. Yeah, it really is a roller coaster. The highs are high and the lows can be low. I think overall, if you like you're so in it and it's like constant. You know, you're working all the time. Whether or not you're actually sitting at your computer, you're always thinking about it, like the open source licensing, for example.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, sometimes my daughter just, hey, Dad, what are you thinking of?
Yeah, so you're
freezing for a while.
yeah, so you're always thinking, and it can detract from other parts of your life. So it's really difficult sometimes to cut a line between, or to cut a box around all the things that matter, so you can give the right time to the things that deserve it.
Uh-huh.
But overall, if you were to zoom out, I think that the experience is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
If you like, for me, one of the things I enjoy the most is like learning new things, or like figuring out ways to master stuff and like apply myself until I feel like I've mastered something, and it's endless. So I can try so hard for so long to become a master in this, because there's just so much to learn and so much to tackle. So my intellectual self enjoys that. Doesn't always translate into immediate joy all the time.
Yeah, and also like if we take this coffee as the kind of metaphor, something related, that is, say we are co-founder for a coffee shop, and we are very passionate for this thing, and we have our own recipe, our kind of coffee shop style, and we recruit more folks, we attract more customers, even loyal ones, and we are going to hire more folks.
Yeah.
And some of the people can really make much better coffee than I do.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Right? As a co-founder, you don't have to be the best for every single thing. You either grow up with yourself, you hire someone better than yourself. It's a team, but you have something bigger. You have the vision, you have the resource. Say you are a owner or co-founder for a coffee shop like 5 years ago. Now you are talking about whether I should have a chain of coffee shop or have a special brand. Whether I should sell T-shirts. You have a much bigger problem to solve.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, if you can pick up the playlist, if you can make a good coffee, great. But you don't have to. You don't have to be so good for every single thing. And it's really a teamwork.
Yeah.
And also question yourself, what's the best way for you to contribute value to the team? If you are not really in that driving seat, you are not really handle every single details.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally true. Like, I mean, you have to probably do most things at least once or halfway yourself before you can accurately identify the right person to do it better than you. But I think that's mostly the job of a startup founder is find the people who can do the job you're doing better than you.
Yep.
I mean, amongst other things, but definitely in the human resources side of things, that's the job, really.
Yeah, I remember that is in some other company I work for, there's even a person, the only job for that person is to review how the logo is used in other media. Yeah. That's the solo
just it. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, that's like, it's such a good tell of like where businesses come from and go to.
Okay.
You know, imagine us sitting here, the teams we have, whatever, under 10 people or approximately 10 people, thinking about that someday the company we are working to build might have someone whose only role is to make sure the logo is used appropriately. Mm-hmm. It's kind of mind-boggling, right? You know,
I'm not sure that's but
yeah, no, I know it's a tell. I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad either, but it's like at some point you just I think it's probably a bad thing, but you know, it's a necessity, I guess, at some point maybe, but it's just so crazy to think that's what might become, where all we think about today is such like important, or not to say that that's not important to belittle anyone's job, but such important like core to the business decisions and tasks. Mm-hmm. It is incredible to like stretch out to think where what you said is true, like that there's one person who really just makes sure the logo is used in the right way. Yeah, that's a long way.
Yeah, and that again, there's a lot of theories where people have been doing this in very different ways, and there's some theory that is you should be set always like a moon shooter. You always set a super high goal, and you work very hard. Don't make any compromise. Everything should be perfect. There's also other stuff like something should be good enough. Don't spend too much time on those non-important stuff.
Yeah. And
there's always kind of the spectrum is so wide. Everyone can pick up something comfortable. If you're talking about Steve Jobs, if you're talking about Elon Musk, they do something very crazy, but you are not Steve Jobs.
Yeah. No, not Steve Jobs. Yeah, there's the perfectionist, but I think that's it. Like everything there's always a trade-off, right? Mm-hmm. You know, efficiency, speed, perfection, there's always a trade-off. I think it's like what you said. You understand your skills. You should understand your skills better than anyone else, so that you can best offload the things that you're not the best at.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a running hypothesis. Cool.
If we talk about other topics, I will say maybe we can talk a little bit about data streaming, right? I mean, maybe prepare for our next episode. Yeah, we talk a little bit about like this. Our goal, no matter Timeplus or Bytewax, is really to see whether we can make these things easier, not so complicated, less expensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other kind of assumptions or stop people thinking that is, hey, it is the future for sure, but whether it's a big thing for the next, say, 2-4 years.
Yeah.
For example, like, there's so many OLAP systems, so many different computing framework. People also so passionate about AI or real-time training. For example, if I observe this warehouse or data lake space, there's so many different things.
Yeah.
And the big companies such as Snowflake and Databricks, they're offering super advanced stuff like English SDK, or they have Iceberg, partner with AWS. So I guess naturally some people will ask, like, can I solve my batch problem first? It's typical with is batch good enough?
Yeah, batch is good enough. Yeah, that's why I did that talk of mine at Data Council. Yeah, I think, oftentimes people will try to explain how all you need is batch. And I think that really the question is not like batch versus streaming, is like, when do you need each tool? You know, like batch is perfectly acceptable for a suite of workloads where your data doesn't move that fast, or you're just answering questions where the ultimate value, because everything's about creating value out of the data, and the ultimate value doesn't change as the time at which you take the data, the freshness or the latency at which you can turn the data into an insight or into a reaction or something happening. That if the value doesn't increase as the time goes closer and closer to single-digit milliseconds on Timeplus, there's no reason to move to real time. So business analytics or business intelligence, if you're ordering new inventory, you don't need to know that in real time necessarily, unless there's a proven increase in the value add to the business if you can forecast on a second time scale for whatever reason, right? And that's probably why, this is why for us, there's a lot of IoT use cases or financial services or cybersecurity. And because in one way, shape, or form, you're either saving the business money or you're creating or you're making money as you move closer to zero. Financial services, and in particular, high-frequency trading or quantitative trading strategies is a really interesting use case to like explain the value increasing exponentially as you get closer to zero, because that's exactly what they're doing when you're trying to do some sort of time-based trading strategy, like in high-frequency trading. You're competing for dollars as you get closer to zero. And so the closer you are to zero, the more you're going to get of the overall pie of whatever that arbitrage might be. So I don't know. That's the gist of it for me, is like, don't use streaming unless you need it. And the reason you need it is if that value curve looks like that. It looks like or at least close to an exponential, but as you get to what's perceived as real time, you're really increasing that value. You're detecting fraud, you're detecting abuse patterns on a platform, you're doing some sort of high frequency trading, or you're making operational decisions in real time to like match drivers and riders, or these sort of things. Like, I actually think there's a big, and I'll be curious to get your opinion on this, there's a big opportunity in this operational space. You know, as more and more inputs of the business are available in real time, what are all these operational use cases that are going to evolve? And yeah, I'd be curious just what you think about that.
Yeah, and
because that's where we focus a lot, is like enabling those operational use cases. When I say operational, I mean like it's fraud. The human is out of the loop. It's basically like the machines are kind of operating some part of the business. The best one is like the Uber sort of problem. So you're matching the driver and the rider, and so the machine, the brain, or whatever they called it, does that.
Yeah, I guess I should join more technical conference. I joined some, but not enough. And I guess the last one, besides the council we met in Austin, the other one I joined was end of March for the StarTree real-time analytics summit.
Yeah.
And that was a very nice talk. One of the slides which kind of get a lot of claps, and that is people don't make a real-time decision within 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So it is true that, and that's also emphasized a lot regarding the value of data streaming or streaming database is not really for human to watch the dashboard or all the stuff all the time. Right? It might happen for those trading. I mean, they have multiple screens. Sorry about that, but for many other folks, they just don't want to keep staring at the dashboard. It's not really.
It's not really useful.
So we really like the idea about operational use cases. Even like back in Splunk, it is not really a BI system. It's more like operational intelligence system. So we like that idea a lot. So when we build a Timeplus, we build some chart or dashboard. Some folks ask this question: Hey Joe, I really like your dashboard. Can I use this as a reporting tool? No, this is designed to be a data exploration tool, just to help you to see whether your assumption is correct, matching the data pattern. You can easily build a line chart with some trend line, but it's not really meant to be a dashboard or kind of AI or new BI stuff. So in the end, it's really about either moving data from A to B or trigger other system using webhook, using API. For example, in our case, we have some use cases to see, for example, for the IoT use cases, whether a certain driver is driving too crazy. Okay, I saw.
It was doing that.
Okay.
Repeatedly. I don't know what it's doing.
Yeah, it's maybe coming from the webhook, and it's too smart. Anyway, some of the drivers or some in our use cases, they are detecting whether the driver driving this too crazy, whether it's too fast, because all the truck, they are so heavy, it's very difficult for them to brake in a meaningful way. So they have very restricted speed limits. And also whether the driver drive too long without sleep. And you have to figure out whether it's a real rest or fake rest. For example, if you are waiting for the traffic light, it's not a rest.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to wait for more than, say, for example, 4 minutes. Then you have stuff like session windows. I mean, those are advanced stuff, but related to business, that is, the world is complicated enough. You have to apply a certain strategy to figure out something you really want to understand and trigger those stuff.
Yeah. No
matter giving a call to the driver or send a red flag to the trader, hey, someone is doing very suspicious trading, do check out. So we don't really expect our stuff can be monitored at the real time by a human being. There will be more kind of machine-to-machine talk. And also, there's a lot of discussion, I think, these days with the ChatGPT, those AI. It would be really great if the AI or the machine can capture the signal, but it is the human being to make the call. Right, whether this person should be fired, sorry about that, or whether we should make this purchase. There's a lot of data points coming from everywhere. AI or the machine is the right tool to capture those stuff, categorize it. But in the end, you cannot blame the AI. It should be the person take the responsibility to make the final call and take the consequences.
The liability engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also override it. So
They're all going to be like,
yeah,
engineers.
your data point looks right, but for whatever reason, I think this is not the right thing to do, and here's why.
Yeah.
So there's a balance, right? So and also for Timeplus, we also make this decision that is we are more than a streaming processor. So we have our own kind of OLAP or data kind of batch in our element. So we try to provide a platform for you to, hey, if you really want to understand what's going on, you can do it. But if you want to apply certain batch processing, OLAP processing, you can also do it using us.
Yeah. All in SQL.
In SQL, yes.
Cool.
But so this is, for example, we are more like focus is on the streaming side, and we cover a little bit about the OLAP.
Yeah.
And other companies such as say Snowflake, they're coming from the OLAP or batch side, and they will add some streaming side. So eventually, we all want to provide a good solution for users. But we don't just want to build something crazy or innovative just for our own purpose. We want to solve the real problem. And the difference that is we coming from streaming and touch the batch side, and some company starting from batch and starting using more streaming in the middle. Yeah.
So I get this question a number of times, and I'd be curious what you think, because you've been working in this space now for quite a while. So streaming has been touted the next big thing for quite a while, since I
hope
big data and streaming. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Why now? So why not? Why hasn't it? Why is now the time when streaming will go kind of stream processing or data streaming will go mainstream now and hasn't in the last decade?
Yeah, even which keyword is if we only choose one keyword, say streaming or real time, among these two, it is very tricky, right? So we have, in most cases, we don't want to put us in this situation. We only have to choose one. But I will say overall, it is the time for real time. This is more like my personal opinion. There's a lot of debate in the community, but to some degree, that is the real time is the goal for most of the end user. They want to see what kind of signal in the real time, what kind of decision they can make in the real time. Streaming, in many cases, it's more like the mechanism.
Yeah, the technology.
You want to using the streaming technology, do this incremental stuff like we do in our component. You don't have to rescan everything in the past. Then you can achieve lower latency without wasting so much effort. And we keep certain state. Even you can have crazy stuff like CDC or join, that can be the other topic. But in many ways, streaming is the mechanism to achieve the real time. And sometimes real time is just one benefit of streaming. That as I mentioned, that you can have rich context. You save the workload. It's more than just about the low latency. But depends on who you talk to, right? So if you talk to a business owner, IT manager, CTO, what they really want is the real time, not really streaming.
Yeah.
They don't really care too much about whether
the technology.
How you implement it. Do you have a fast OLAP
or
every second, or you have a streaming like Splunk or Timeplus or Bytewax? They don't really care so much about that. But overall, people really have much higher expectation. The bar is high for how real time it should be, like all those Uber, DoorDash, everything happening right now. Right? So people complaining why it's not real time, and also with the rise of like Kafka, Pulsar, all the Kinesis, all those stuff, we don't really spend so much time as before to capture the data from everywhere. Right? So for example, as I mentioned earlier, Splunk, 20 years ago, there are so many different file systems, network protocols. They have to spend many time on the forward itself. I remember we have maintained a long list, maybe 12 different OS to support, or file system to support for Splunk forwarder. It's crazy, but now we're mainly talking about getting data from API. Kafka or SAS API. You have less problem to solve on the data consolidating side. But once data is in Kafka, I will say many people don't really get enough value from the Kafka data. They can get more. Because they feel like, oh, this is there, I don't really have the right tool or system to capture that, or I don't know what to capture. then they just consolidate it first
Mm-hmm.
and worry about it later. But I'm not saying waste of time, money, but you should get more by leveraging some of the solution in the community.
So I have a question I've wanted to ask you because you're tackling the SQL on streams space. What should people think about when they're differentiating between a streaming database and a stream processor that uses SQL as the interface?
Mm-hmm.
What are the differentiators that people should think about, and how should they make the decision on what to use?
Yeah, just like I keep saying coffee in this talk, I guess there's no, hey, you should drink a latte, you should drink espresso. There's no such rule. Right? And sometimes you do need a strong espresso to work on some hard problems, but sometimes you just want to chat with some friend. Having a decaf latte will be the best thing.
Yeah.
And also for a team, it's okay you use both.
Yeah.
Right? So certain, for example, I know because I'm coming from China for my past life. I spent at least 5 years in Splunk. There's a lot of big company in China using Flink in a crazy way. They're talking about at least 100 different nodes for Flink, sometimes 1,000.
Wow.
So what do they really care about? The scalability, and then also they want to isolate. Hey, only this engineer, this team can use this cluster. It should not impact other folks.
Yeah. Which is hard to do with a Flink cluster, right?
Yeah, they always create a mini cluster.
Yeah, you have a mini cluster in each node or each pod in your Kubernetes cluster, and you isolate your nodes.
They even have some kind of best practice that is one job.
Yeah,
only using one
cluster. Yeah, that's crazy. You're like, why do I even have a cluster?
That's the best way to avoid node neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort.
And each one's on its own VM. You're like, wait, 1 second here. Why are you using a cluster?
Yeah, so some team have good reason to choose a very compact system. The complexity have a good reason. Even sometimes it's not so necessary. But back to your question regarding, you have different flavor of coffee. You can have streaming processor speak in SQL.
Yeah.
I will list some of them in my talk.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a good kind of abstraction for you to using the SQL as the common language. Don't worry too much about the primary API or kind of other REST or stuff. And if you're using SQL when we say stream database, by default we are talking about SQL as the primary interface. Right, the difference is more about, hey, besides this processing itself, you can also keep the state. The state is not in memory. It can be persistent at the long term, even have a certain cluster behind.
Yeah.
Then the question is really about, hey, do you really, for example, I know some solutions you can get data from A and combine data from other stuff, even do the join using SQL, then ship this what they call the OBT, one big table, to a system like Snowflake.
Yeah.
Then it's already everything.
Like a hybrid thing.
Yeah, it's already joined, right? So there is maybe 100 different columns. So good luck to this data analyst to create a beautiful chart using Snowflake. That's not my problem, that's your problem.
Yeah.
And I have already do whatever I can do for you.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about, hey, there's a data schema drift, or some other PI, then you have to do it again. But it's a solution, right? So depends on the choice.
So when you hear there's like rising wave, materialize, and then you have decodable, and then you have Timeplus, and so the user always is using this SQL interface, this declarative syntax, but why does one call it a database? Why is one group calling themselves a database versus a stream processor?
Yeah, so for example, I have many friends in Decodable, so if you're watching this, hi, we miss you, and see you soon in the conferences. So Decodable is more put into the category of SQL-based streaming processor in the cloud.
Yeah.
So
this is Flink based.
It's Flink based, and it's I'm not sure what the current status. My understanding is cloud only.
Yeah.
So if you really believe that is all my stuff is in the cloud, my public cloud or private cloud, and you don't really want to manage that infrastructure by yourself, and you already have a certain choice for your long-term storage or database or data warehouse such as Iceberg or as Snowflake, then Cribl can be your choice, right? All you want is getting data from ABC and do the merge and do the join, do the filtering, and send to a sink or send to multiple sync.
Yeah.
That can be a solution without create the other database in your case.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cribl team did a great job regarding have a lot of source and sinks.
Yeah.
So check out that. So we are already in this coffee space. I want more people drink coffee, not really go to this coffee shop, the other coffee shop. We are all happy.
You can go to the Decodable coffee shop.
Here's the link.
Yeah.
And other companies such as Materialize, Rising Wave, Timeplus. I guess the order is more like from when the company started. I guess Materialize is the first, and then Rising Wave and Timeplus. We are close to Rising Wave regarding when we founded, but we take a similar approach, like a SQL-based stream database, but we offer something different. For example, we have a much stronger OLAP system engine. It's not role-based, it's column-based, and other stuff. We have the dashboard alerts and some solution for a certain area. Again, we try to make coffee, but the coffee, we are in the same category like Materialize, Rising Wave, Timeplus in general, but the coffee shop looks very different.
Yeah.
The location is different. How
the
the theme is different.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but a user can expect to get the database type guarantees if they use a streaming database.
Yes. So they don't worry too much regarding
Consistency.
do I have to pair with the other OLAP? Do I have to choose stuff like Apache Node or Jove or Snowflake or Iceberg as my downstream? You don't have to choose downstream. It's up to you whether you want to just query our database or you send certain data to other systems. And you can do like clustering and all those stateful stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I always find that I get questions because I think it's kind of difficult to pinpoint, in a small list, the differences between the streaming database and the streaming stream processor with the SQL interface. And I think the reason is because a lot of the jobs to be done can look very similar. And until you get into the nuances.
Yeah. And I guess we had the discussion maybe in Austin in one of the coffee shop that is, hey, Bytewax, do you think you should add a SQL interface? Yeah, I guess in the end it's like we don't really be so huge, right? And we have a certain focus, and there are some certain customer really like a certain type of offering.
Type of coffee.
Yeah, so they
strictly espresso.
they don't want to get a super fancy margarita in a coffee shop, right? We can do it if we want.
Yeah.
But we don't have to offer every single choices they may possibly ask.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap this up? I think we're almost out of time.
Yeah. So it's almost 2 hours. I think I put the preparation time. I'm so glad we have this talk.
Same. It's cool that we got to meet up in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So we'll see you again in San Jose and on the 26th or 27th or whenever current is.
Yeah.
You'll have to come to Santa Cruz and then hopefully again in November at Scale by the Bay. Yeah.
And we all will be in the demo booth in this conference current 2023 and
Startup Row.
Yeah, and go check out the booth and. I haven't decided.
Are you going to have coffee there, like Precision Dynamics? I think it's Precision Dynamics.
Yeah, we're not sure whether we'll bring a coffee machine to the booth or whether we try to find a nice coffee shop local having certain meetup. My talk, even it's not finalized, I will using the coffee a lot. Hey, this is a solution product ABC. Say this is Flink. This is some coffee looks like Flink, something like that.
Yeah.
So if you like this idea, let me know. And again, I do think this is a very interesting moment for us to do more about data streaming. Encourage more people to try coffee, even if you drink tea or water. But go have a try.
Yeah, I think
not that bad.
we all have the same goal to bring more people into the fold. So
yes, and maybe having the podcast together with a mono mic might be a crazy idea, but we'll see. We do want to bring some joy to this data engineering side, right?
Yeah.
And more real time, more fun. Happy streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, goodbye. Thank you. See you next time.
See you, everyone.